Status update on the perimeter. Contact confirms location.
Stop!
There is a kind of man who believes he has seen everything. Damian Cole was that kind of man. He stepped out of his black armored convoy on Lagos Island at exactly 3 in the afternoon. 6 guards surrounded him. 3 cars behind. 2 ahead. The street parted around him the way streets part for men who carry power without having to announce it. He was not loud. He was not cruel. He simply moved through the world as though it had been arranged for him. And for a long time, it had been. That afternoon, he was walking toward his office entrance when a small hand reached out and grabbed his sleeve. He looked down. A girl, barefoot on hot asphalt, clothes torn at the shoulder. Her face was dirty, but her eyes were wide awake, burning with something urgent, something that had nothing to do with hunger or begging. She looked up at him and said, quietly and clearly, "Your men are not your men." Damian Cole looked at her the way powerful men look at things beneath their notice. 1 flat second, then away. "Move her," he said to the nearest guard. 2 hands grabbed the girl and pushed her back. She stumbled but did not fall. Damian walked inside without looking back. But at the edge of the convoy, 1 guard stood very still. He was not watching his boss walk away. He was watching the girl. And his face was not angry. It was afraid. Inside the building, Damian sat at the head of a long table. 8 men in suits around him. 8 carefully arranged faces. His chief of security, a broad man named Femi, was speaking. Minor concerns about a northern route. A rival group spotted near one of the warehouses. Damian cut him off. "I don't pay people to bring me fears," he said. "I pay them to bring me results." The room nodded. The room always nodded. This was how things worked with Damian Cole. He spoke. They agreed. Order was maintained. Distance was kept. He trusted no one fully, not because he was paranoid, but because he had built a system, and the system worked. He believed that completely. What nobody told him, what Femi chose very carefully not to mention, was that the convoy route for the following morning had already been changed. Not by Damian's order. By Femi's quiet instruction to the driver, given earlier that morning. Just 2 streets over. A small change. The kind of change that means nothing. Or everything. Damian had a rule he had lived by for years. Trust is not earned, it is controlled. He had built walls. He had built distance. He had built careful systems between himself and every person who worked for him. He believed those walls made him safe. He was wrong. On the other side of Lagos, Zena was doing what she did every day. She was watching. She sat on an overturned crate near a busy bus stop, eating half a meat pie she had found near a food stall. Around her the city moved loud and fast. Okadas weaving between buses, traders shouting, children running through gaps in traffic. Zena was not watching any of that. She was watching Damian's men. She had been watching them for 6 days. Not because anyone asked her to. Not because she had a plan. Because something felt wrong, and her body knew it before her mind could name it. She noticed small things. The way 2 guards always stood close together but pretended not to know each other. The way one of them, a tall man with a scar below his left ear, always looked away when Damian spoke directly to him. Then she saw something that stopped her breath completely. That guard, the one with the scar. She had seen him before. Not here. Not with Damian. 2 years ago. A different city. A night she had barely survived. That same man had been there. And he had not been on the right side that night either. Zena set down her meat pie slowly. Her hands were no longer hungry. Her mind was fully awake. The next morning, Zena had been awake since 4. She watched from a corner near Damian's building as the convoy assembled in the early light. She counted the guards, noted the vehicles, then noticed something that made her stomach tighten like a fist. The convoy was going the wrong way. Not the usual route. A different one. Quieter streets. Fewer cameras. More blind corners. She ran. She caught up at a traffic stop where hawkers pressed against every window selling water and bread. She knocked hard on the glass. The window opened 2 inches. A driver's eye. "Tell your boss they changed his route today. He didn't order this. Someone else did." The window closed. But before the light changed, one of the back doors opened slightly, just a crack, and a voice came through. "Who told you about the route?" Cold. Flat. Damian's voice. Zena stepped closer to the gap. "Nobody told me. I watched." The door closed. The convoy moved. But this time, Damian did not dismiss her quickly. He sat back in his seat and looked out the window at the unfamiliar streets his driver had chosen that morning without telling him. And for the first time in a long time, A small cold question rose inside him. There were 5 men in Damian's inner circle. He had chosen each one carefully over many years. Femi, his chief of security. 12 years of service. Broad, dependable, always in the right position. Chukwu, his personal driver and closest guard. 10 years. The man who had driven him home on his worst nights. Bello, who managed his business accounts. 8 years of quiet precision. Tund, who handled all communications. 6 years. And Ade, the youngest, just 3 years, but who had already proven himself twice in dangerous situations. From the outside, this group looked like a wall. Solid, layered, built by a careful man who understood loyalty. But walls have cracks. That same evening, in a restaurant 3 streets from Damian's office, Femi sat across from Bello at a corner table. They ordered food they barely touched. They spoke in voices barely above the ceiling fan. He's starting to notice things, Bello said. He always notices things, Femi replied. It's too late to stop what's already in motion. And the girl? Femi's jaw tightened. She's a problem. Then she becomes a former problem, Bello said quietly. After the meeting. Not before. Don't make noise before. Nobody watching would have seen anything unusual. 2 men having a quiet dinner. But if you had learned to look the way Zina had learned to look, if you had spent years reading what people try to hide, you would have noticed that neither of them exhaled easily at any point during that entire meal. 3 days later, Zina appeared again. This time she did not stand to the side. She did not blend into the crowd or approach from a cautious angle. She planted herself directly in the center of the gate to Damian's compound, in the middle of the entrance, where no guard could pretend not to see her, and she spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. Tell Mr. Cole I know his Thursday schedule. I know where he is having dinner and which table they reserved. And I know he didn't choose that restaurant. The guard stopped. One touched his earpiece. Zina stood completely still. She had learned long ago that running makes people chase you. Standing makes them think. The gate opened, not wide, just enough, and a voice came from inside. Bring her. They walked her to a small room with 1 table and 2 chairs. Damian was already there. He sat with elbows on the table, watching her walk in. She sat down without being invited. He noticed that. Where did you get that information? He asked. The same place I get everything, she said. I watch. I listen. I remember. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. He studied her face. Dirty clothes. Bare feet. Calm eyes that did not look away. Who sent you? He asked. She looked straight back at him. Nobody sends me anywhere. The brake failure happened on a Wednesday morning. Damian's convoy was leaving his estate when the lead car's brakes locked suddenly at the bottom of the slope. The driver swerved hard. The car clipped a low concrete barrier and stopped. Nobody was hurt. Barely a scratch. Femi's team declared it mechanical failure within the hour. Wear and tear. These things happen. Damian accepted this. He had no reason not to. What nobody told him was that Zina had been near the estate gate that same morning, standing in the early gray light, watching. She had spotted something on the underside of the lead car, a connector that looked wrong, that looked touched. She tried to stop the gate guard. He threatened to arrest her. She stood at the edge of the road and watched the convoy pull away. Then she heard the screech of locked brakes from down the street. She closed her eyes. She opened them. The car had stopped. Damian was stepping out, irritated, straightening his jacket, unharmed. Zina exhaled slowly. She had tried. She had failed to stop it in time. But it had not been enough to kill him. She stood there in the morning heat and understood, with total clarity, that she could not keep trying from a distance. Next time would be different. She had to make him listen before next time arrived. That afternoon, Damian called his head of intelligence, a quiet, thorough man named Segan, and gave him one simple instruction. Find out everything about a street girl. Young, barefoot, goes by Zina. She keeps appearing near my convoy. Segan nodded and left. Damian expected a file within 24 hours. His network was wide. His reach was deep. These things were never difficult. But 48 hours passed. Then 72. Segan returned. And his face carried an expression Damian had never seen on him before. Not the look of a man who had found something, but the look of a man who had found a wall. Sir, there is nothing. Nothing. No identification. No records. No hospital visits. No school enrollment. No registered address. She does not exist on paper anywhere. Damian was quiet for a moment. A person with no records was not unusual in Lagos. But a person with no records who knew his private schedule, who had appeared beside his convoy 3 times, who had warned him about a route he himself had not been told about, that was something else entirely. "Try again," Damian said. "Sir, I did try again. The partial records I found the first time, they were gone. Deleted." Damian went completely still. "Someone deleted her file," he said, quietly, almost to himself. "Yes, sir. From inside our system." The room was silent. Damian looked out the window at the city below, vast and loud and indifferent. Someone inside his organization knew this girl existed and wanted to make absolutely certain he could not find her. Zena did not sleep much. She had not slept well in 2 years. She had trained herself to rest lightly, one ear always open, one part of her always watching, even in the dark. 11 nights ago, she had been near the back fence of a private club that Damian's men used for their late meetings. She had followed Khalid there, the guard with the scar, and crouched in the shadow of the fence in the thick night air. Through the gaps, she heard fragments. Not full sentences, just pieces floating through. "Hand over before the summit. He won't expect it from inside." 3 days after the dinner meeting. She had not understood everything. Context was missing. Details were swallowed by distance and noise. But one word had stayed with her. One word had kept her awake every night for 11 days. Handover. It took her 3 days of thinking, turning the pieces over, rearranging them, testing different meanings, before she understood what that word meant in this context. They were not talking about money. They were not talking about property or goods or territory. They were talking about a person. And the only person at the center of everything these men did, the only person worth handing over to outside buyers, was Damian Cole himself. She had to tell him. Even if he shoved her away again, she had to tell him. She found him outside his building at dusk on a Thursday. He was alone for 30 seconds. His guards had stepped back while he took a call. She moved fast and was standing beside him before anyone could react. She spoke quietly, close enough that only he could hear. "They will kill you at your own table." Damian did not move, did not shout. He stood with the phone still pressed to his ear and looked at her sideways. The slow look of a man whose body has gone completely still while his mind races. His guards reached her in seconds. Hands closed on her arms. "Wait," Damian said. They stopped. He ended the call. Slowly. Then he turned and faced her fully, for the first time, with the sharp, undivided focus of a man who has stopped pretending not to see something. "Say that again," he said. "They will kill you at your own table. At the dinner. Your own men." From inside. A long silence. "Let her go," he told the guards. They released her. She straightened her torn sleeve. "What table?" he asked. "You'll find out soon. Someone will suggest a restaurant. You'll think it was your idea. It wasn't." She walked away before he could ask anything more. Behind her, she did not see Damian stand completely still on that pavement for a full minute, thinking about the unfamiliar streets his driver had chosen that same morning. Damian began to watch his men differently after that. Not obviously. He was too practiced for obvious. He smiled at the same times, ran meetings the same way, sat in the same chair, and gave the same instructions in the same tone of voice. But his eyes were doing different work. He watched how Femi handled his phone during meetings, the slight downward angle that meant he was reading messages while pretending to take notes. He watched how Bello always found a reason to know his schedule 3 days in advance. He watched Chukwu, his driver of 10 years, and looked for what had always been there, but that he had never truly examined. Chukwu was loyal. Damian was almost certain of that. Almost. That almost was new. That almost was the girl's doing. Her fault or her gift, depending on how you held it. He also noticed that Ade had begun asking questions he had no reason to ask. Casual questions. Small ones. Designed to confirm details without appearing to seek them. "What time is the car arriving Thursday? Just asking in case you need me early. Which floor is the dinner? In case security needs a walkthrough." Innocent words. But too many of them. And they always arrived just before a change in the schedule. Damian said nothing. He filed everything. He waited. The invitation came from Bello on a Monday morning. A business dinner. High-stakes guests. A property developer from Abuja, 2 international partners, and a government contact Damian had been trying to reach for months. The kind of meeting that could add 3 zeros to a deal. The location, Horizon Restaurant, Victoria Island. 43rd floor. Private dining room. Damian looked at the address Bello slid across the desk. Bello smiled. Perfect setting for a meeting at this level, sir. I took the liberty of booking it already. Thursday evening. You booked it before I confirmed? A small pause. Just a breath too long. I was certain you'd agree when you saw the guest list. Damian nodded slowly. Thursday. Fine. He dismissed Bello and sat alone for several minutes. He pulled out his small notebook and wrote one word. Horizon. Then he thought about the girl. Someone will suggest a restaurant. You'll think it was your idea. It wasn't. He hadn't chosen Horizon. Bello had. He put the notebook away. Then he picked up his car keys. Not his phone, not his radio, not the button that would summon a guard. Just his keys. He went downstairs alone. He drove himself. He went to find the street girl. He found her near the bridge on Lagos Island where she usually stayed. She was sitting with 2 other street children, sharing groundnuts. When she saw his car, just one car, no convoy, no guards, she stood slowly. He got out and walked toward her across the hot road. The dinner is at Horizon Restaurant, he said. Thursday night. She went completely still. Then she grabbed his arm with both hands. Don't go. Don't go to that dinner. Tell me why. That's the place I heard. Handover at the dinner meeting. 3 days from tonight is Thursday. That's the place. That's the night. The guests may be real. The danger will also be real. Give me names. She shook her head. I only have pieces. But I know that meeting is a trap laid from inside. You're asking me to cancel a meeting with government contacts on your word alone. She looked up at him. Not with desperation. Not with pleading. Quietly. Evenly. With the particular steadiness of someone who has nothing left to lose and nothing left to hide. I'm asking you to be alive on Friday morning. He stood there looking at this barefoot girl in torn clothes who had warned him 5 times without asking for a single thing in return. Behind him, unnoticed, a car sat parked at a distance. Inside it, Khalad was already on his phone. Thursday arrived the way dangerous things always do. Calmly, like any other day, Damian stepped into the convoy at 7 in the evening. Dressed for dinner. His men surrounded him. 6 guards. 3 cars. The usual order. But something was different. The atmosphere inside the car was wrong. Too quiet, too composed, a stillness that did not feel like calm, but like performance. Even Chukwu, who hummed almost every time he drove, was completely silent. Both hands on the wheel. Eyes on the road. Not a word. Damian sat with his hands on his knees and watched everything. At the restaurant, they moved through the lobby to a private elevator. Femi went ahead to check the room. Standard procedure, the thing he always did. Except tonight, Femi did not come back down. He sent Ade instead. Femi says the room is ready, sir. He's managing the perimeter. Damian stepped into the elevator. The doors closed. He was alone with Ade and Khalad. As they rose, Damian watched Khalad touch his earpiece twice. Not to receive a message, but to send a signal. Not communication. Confirmation. 2 floors below the private dining room, the elevator stopped. Not because anyone pressed a button. Because someone on that floor had overridden it from outside. The doors opened. The hallway was empty. Lights dimmed to near darkness. And at the far end, 2 men standing, waiting. Men Damian had never seen before. What happened next took less than 4 minutes. But those 4 minutes changed everything. The 2 men moved forward. Professional. Fast. No hesitation. Ade stepped to the side, not confused, not startled, with the smooth, unhurried calm of someone who had known exactly what was coming and had been waiting for it. Damian had 3 seconds. He used them to think, not panic. That was who he was. And then the stairwell door to his left burst open. Zena came through it running. She had 2 men with her. Older, street-hardened, not trained fighters, but large enough and willing enough to cause confusion. She moved straight through the chaos directly to Damian and grabbed his arm hard. Stairs. Now. Down. Khalad reached for her. She dropped low and drove her elbow into his ribs with the full force of desperation. He stumbled. One of her men shoved him hard into the wall. They ran. 3 floors down. A door opening to a service corridor. Then an exit. Then an alley. The night air hit them both like cold water. Zena pressed against the wall, breathing hard. Her left arm was bleeding. Khalad had caught her wrist in those final seconds and twisted before she broke free. The cut was long and dark in the low light. Damian stood beside her. Both of them alive. He looked at her arm. She looked at his face. I told you, she said. Nothing more. They drove in silence for 20 minutes. Damian had called one number, a contact kept completely outside his organization, save for exactly this kind of emergency. A safe house on the mainland, clean and unknown. When they arrived, Xena sat down on a wooden chair and let a woman clean and wrap her arm. The cut was long but not deep. It would leave a mark. Across the room, Damian stood and thought. He thought about Ade stepping aside, about Femi who had not come back down, about Khalad's signal in the elevator, 2 taps, not receiving but confirming, about the 2 men who had been waiting in that dimmed hallway as though they had known exactly which elevator, exactly which floor. Then something hit him that went deeper than all of it. During the chaos, one attacker had broken away and walked calmly out of the building. Damian's emergency contact had confirmed this. The man had used a clearance code to move through restricted access doors. Damian's own personal code, known to only 3 people in the world. He sat down heavily. His own code, in the hands of men who had come to make him disappear. The betrayal was not a crack in his organization. It was not carelessness or poor judgment or a single weak link. It was a deliberate excavation, dug carefully, quietly, patiently over a long time by people who had eaten at his table and stood at his shoulder for years. Late that night, Damian walked to the room where Xena was resting. She was awake. She was always awake. He sat across from her. "I need to understand how you knew," he said. She looked at him. "You won't like the answer. Tell me anyway. I watch people the way hungry people watch food. Not casually. Completely. When you have nothing, watching is how you survive. I watched your men because I recognized Khalad from something bad that happened to me 2 years ago. And once I saw him, I couldn't stop." Damian was quiet for a moment. "Why didn't you go to the police?" She made a sound that was almost a laugh. "Almost. Police don't speak to people who sleep under bridges. And some of what I saw connected back to things your organization does. I didn't know which parts of the law were already bought." He nodded. She was right. They both knew it. "You saved my life tonight," he said. She shifted slightly, her wrapped arm resting in her lap. "3 of your own men tried to hand you over to people who would have made you disappear," she said. "That matters more than what I did." Then, before he could offer anything, she said it plainly. "I don't want anything from you. I just didn't want to watch someone die when I could stop it." She told him what she chose to tell him. Not everything. Not yet. She told him she had been in Kano 2 years ago, working as a cleaner at a logistics company. She had seen something she was never meant to see. Documents, a transaction, names written where they should not have been written. Khalad had been one of the men sent to make sure she stayed silent. She escaped because she was small and fast, and because they had made the mistake of underestimating her. She had been running carefully ever since. 8 months in Lagos, invisible under the bridge, watching and waiting and staying unseen. What she did not tell him was everything about the logistics company. She did not say whose name she had seen on those documents. But Damian was a careful man. He caught what she left out the way you notice a missing step in a staircase. Not because you can see it, but because your body expects it and finds nothing there. "The company in Kano," he said. "Was it connected to my business?" She met his eyes. "I think some of the same people were involved. That's all I'm saying for now." Damian sat with that for a long time. The betrayal inside his organization was not new. It had roots. And those roots went further back and further out than a Thursday dinner at a restaurant on the 43rd floor. Damian spent the next 4 days taking his own empire apart from the inside. Quietly, surgically, the way you remove poison without spilling it. He did not return to his office. He worked from 3 different locations, rotating each day. He communicated through channels that bypassed every person employed in the last 5 years. He started with what he could confirm. Khalad, confirmed, had escaped using resources and access he should never have possessed. Ade, confirmed, had stepped aside with the deliberate calm of a man playing a rehearsed role. Femi, strong evidence, still building the picture. And Bello, the dinner booking, the altered route, the deleted file, each piece connected to the next. Each one pointed deeper. The full picture that emerged was darker and larger than he had imagined. The betrayal was not only about power inside his organization. Money had moved, patient, quiet transfers over 18 months, to outside accounts he had never seen. Political connections he had spent years building had been quietly rerouted to serve someone else. 3 legitimate businesses had been signed over in forgeries so carefully executed that he had never once noticed. Someone had been hollowing him out from the inside for a year and a half. They had nearly finished. But they had made one mistake. A single mistake. They had done all of it in front of a girl who had learned to see everything. On the 5th day, the picture became complete. It was not Femi who had designed this. Femi was deeply involved but had been following orders, not giving them. It was not Bello, though Bello had been the careful hand moving many of the smaller pieces. The architect, the one who had built the entire plan from the beginning, who had recruited Khalad and Ade, connected outside buyers, rerouted accounts and assets, and waited 18 months with extraordinary patience for the perfect moment, was Chukwu. His driver. 10 years. 10 years of Damian stepping into a car and trusting a man without ever truly looking at him. Chukwu had access to everything. The personal clearance code. The real schedule before anyone else was told. The moments when Damian was most exposed, in transit between locations, inside a moving car, temporarily beyond the reach of his systems. He was the one who had altered the convoy route. The one who had identified Zena as a threat and ordered her file deleted. He had been the calmest man in every room because he had already seen exactly how things would end. Except that a street girl had refused to be invisible. Damian sat with this for a full hour. He did not move. He did not make calls or take action. He just sat with it. 10 years. Shared meals. Long drives home on the worst nights. Chukwu's voice on difficult mornings, steady and quiet. All of it, every moment, a performance. And one thought arrived quietly and landed hard. All of that. Nearly complete, nearly over, stopped by a girl sleeping under a bridge who had simply refused to stop watching. Zena helped him build the trap. Not with weapons. Not with force. With watching. Chukwu won't expect you to know, she said. His whole plan assumed you'd be gone. He'll want to appear helpful now. He'll come to you. He'll come with a sad face and angry words about betrayal, and he'll offer to help you find who did this. You're certain? Damian asked. People who perform loyalty for 10 years don't know how to stop. It becomes automatic. They forget they're performing. He'll arrive exactly the way I'm describing. Watch. Damian set the trap on a Tuesday morning. He let one piece of information travel through one channel. A channel only Chukwu had access to, containing details about a meeting at a location only Chukwu would know how to reach. Then he waited. At 11 in the morning, Chukwu called. Sir, I heard about Thursday. I've been trying to reach you. Tell me where you are. I'm coming. His voice was perfectly weighted. Concern and devotion in exactly the right measure. The voice of a loyal man in pain. Come to the address I'm sending now, Damian said. He sent the address. Then a second message, to different people. People Chukwu had never seen and would not recognize, who would already be inside and waiting when Chukwu walked through the door. Zena sat beside him as he made the calls. She said nothing. But when he looked at her, she gave a very small nod. Chukwu arrived at 12:43. He walked in relaxed. His face carried exactly the expression Zena had predicted, grief and outrage, perfectly assembled, so well-practiced it looked completely genuine. He did not see the four men standing at the corners of the room. He saw only Damian, standing in the center, and he moved toward him with open arms. Sir, I came as soon as. Sit down, Chukwu. The voice stopped him. Not the words themselves. The tone beneath them. Something flat and certain that Chukwu had never once heard from Damian in 10 years. He sat. What followed was not a confrontation filled with heat and shouting. It was something colder and more deliberate. Damian laying out each piece, one at a time, in order. The route change. The file deletion. The clearance code. The accounts. The forgeries. The Kano connection. With each piece, Chukwu's face changed slightly. The performance began to crack. Not all at once, but line by line. The way ice cracks. A fracture here. A fracture there. Near the end, Damian asked simply, Why? Chukwu looked at him for a long, still moment. And then something genuine crossed his face. Not guilt. Something harder and older than guilt. Because you built all of this, he said. And you never once looked at the man driving you. 10 years. You never asked who I was. Silence. Damian had no answer. Because it was true. Justice came quietly. It always did, when Damian was the one delivering it. He had learned long ago that loud justice creates witnesses and questions. Quiet justice creates change. Chukwu and the others were removed from his world within 48 hours. Financial damage was documented in full. Legal processes began. Not rushed, not theatrical, but thorough and irreversible. The outside buyers, those who had been prepared to receive Damian's handover, those who had built their own quiet plans around his disappearance, found their activities suddenly known to people they had never wanted knowing them. Femi cooperated in exchange for reduced consequences. He had known about the plan but had not originated it. His cooperation filled in details Damian had still been missing. Ade disappeared. Nobody searched hard. Khalad was found 3 days later through information Zina provided. An address in Suralire she had held in her memory for 2 years, updated by patterns she had noticed during her weeks of watching. Through all of it, Damian noticed something happening inside himself that surprised him. He was not handling this the way he had always handled betrayal before. In the past, he would have moved with cold fury. Every wall raised higher. Every system tightened until nothing human could pass through it. This time was different. He was angry, but underneath the anger was something new, a question he had not asked before, about how he had built things, and whether the building itself had caused the cracks. 2 weeks after the dinner that never happened, Damian told his organization what they needed to know about Zina. Not everything. What was necessary? He told them that a young woman, from no organization, working for no one, carrying nothing but her own eyes, had seen the threat building from outside, had tried to warn him 5 times, had physically placed herself between him and the men who came to take him, at cost to herself. The room was silent. Then something uncomfortable moved through it, the specific, quiet discomfort of people realizing that a person they had categorized as worthless had been more valuable than all of them combined. Then Damian began to learn who Zina actually was. What he found surprised him. She had grown up in Port Harcourt. Her father had worked in logistics and financial analysis, moving between Nigeria and West Africa. A careful, precise man who understood exactly what moved through the networks he served. He had been killed 8 years ago. Officially, an accident. In reality, connected to the same network that had tried to take Damian. Zina had been investigating, quietly, invisibly, in her own way, for 8 years. The street was not where life had abandoned her. The street was where she had chosen to hide while she watched. She had not been a lost girl. She had been a patient one. A month later, Damian returned to where it had all started. He drove himself. 1 car. No convoy. No guards. He parked near his office gate at exactly 3 in the afternoon and stepped out into the Lagos heat. Zina was sitting on a low wall across the road. She saw him coming. She did not stand. He crossed the road and stood before her. Lagos moved around them, loud and hot, and completely indifferent, the way cities are when something important is happening quietly inside them. Damian spoke first. "A month ago you grabbed my sleeve right here. I looked through you like you were nothing." Zina said nothing. Not an apology. Just the truth. "You were the most important person on this street that afternoon. And I walked past you." She looked at him. Not forgiving. Not unforgiving. Just awake. Just present. Exactly who she had always been. "I have a proposal," he said. "Not a job. Something I have never needed before. Someone who watches what I can't see. Who tells me what I don't want to hear. Who stands outside the circle so they can see the whole thing clearly." Zina looked down at the street for a moment. Then up. "I work for myself," she said. "For the truth. That's exactly why I'm asking." She stood. They were the same height. "Then we have something to talk about," she said. This time, Damian Cole did not walk past her. He walked beside her. "Stay dangerous. Stay awake."